Meanwhile, here's Gramatica. Romo holds. 19-yard field goal attempt. Oh, it is fumbled by Romo, and then Romo's going to run to the end zone, and he's going to get tackled by Jordan Babineau. Amazing.
Unbelievable. That somebody ought to get fired for pulling that clip out. I think so too. We'll be looking for a media person next week. If you'd like to apply, just go to theavenuechurch.com. We are in a series, for those of you who have no idea why that's up there, called The Struggle is Real. And as Cowboy fans, we understand the struggle is real. And we've been looking forward to getting back for 20-some years. It's crazy. So with all that said, we're in the book of James, and we're talking about struggles. Now, for those of you that haven't caught up, you can catch up online anytime, but I want you to know James is a book in the New Testament. It's the first book written to the followers of Jesus. It was written by James, who is the half-brother of Jesus. And so James watched Jesus grow up, saw him live a perfect life, but all through Jesus' adult ministry and life on the earth, James doubted that he was God. Of course, we understand why he would doubt. I mean, it's hard to convince your family that you're actually God in the flesh. Until the day that he was publicly executed, buried, and 3 days later he came out of the ground, he knocked on the door, and James is like, you are God. And from that point on, James never doubted. In fact, he became a leader in the church. He became a pastor in Jerusalem. And as the church had spread out through the world through persecution, James was writing to all the Christian followers, just like he's writing to you today. And he wants you to understand, based on what he knows about Jesus, this is how you're supposed to live the Christian life. Now, it may surprise you that the second line that he sends out, the second sentence after his introduction is, you're going to have hardships, various trials. You're going to struggle. Now, I know he's remembering when Jesus said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. And so he's pointing out to every one of us in the room, you are going to struggle in your Christian walk. Now, a lot of times we don't sell Christianity like that. We pretty much sell Christianity. You come to Jesus, all your problems are solved. You come to Jesus, everything's going to work out. You're going to be rich, healthy. Your kids are going to be great. All you got to do is come to Jesus. But that's not what the New Testament says. The New Testament says as followers, you're going to have trials and struggles and you're going to have hardships. And then he hits us right where most of us are going to have trials and struggles. He talks about two types of people, the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor. He says it like this in verse 9. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. Believers in their humble circumstances, poor people, ought to take pride in their high position. But the rich should take pride in their humiliation. And then he explains, since they will pass away like a wildflower, for the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant, its blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even as they go about their business. So he's going to be talking all through the next 5 chapters to rich people and to poor people. And you're going to see this go on. And so I want to talk to you today about rich and poor and the categories of rich and poor. So I want to start with a question. Should a Christian person be rich or poor? Real quiet. Because it's the wrong question. The real question should be, should a Christian person be godly or ungodly? Now, come on, that's an easy one. I thought you'd be a little louder on that one. This is easy. The answer is not Jesus, but it's close. Okay? We should be godly. And so James is explaining whether you're rich or whether you're poor, you need to be godly. All through the Bible, we have examples of godly poor people. People who do not have money. That's why the prosperity gospel, for those who don't know what that is, there are preachers that actually preach that if you give money to God, he's going to give money back to you and you're going to be rich. That's not biblical. In the Bible, there are many, many poor people, and we see that they live godly lives. A great example is Jesus' family. The family that Jesus grew up in was a poor family. They were carpenters by trade, which means stonemasons. And they grew up poor. They traveled to Jerusalem. We know they're poor by the sacrifice that they made. It was a poor person's sacrifice. but Mary was a very devout person. She was very, very godly. Jesus points to a widow who's one of the poorest people in their economy. And she goes and she gives her tithe. She gives 2 cents, basically. And he calls her a wonderful, godly person because of the amount she has given. And so there are many godly poor we see in the Bible. But now, don't get me wrong. Some people think, well, you really can't be godly if you're poor, if you're not poor. So rich people are evil. And we run that scenario, rich people bad, poor people good. That's why Robin Hood is so popular. Steal from the rich, give to the poor. I almost said a political joke. I passed on that, thank God. Anyway, all that to say, well, we think the rich people are evil. But there's godly rich people in the Bible. When you look through the Bible, Joseph in the Old Testament was over Egypt. He was very, very rich. Nehemiah was very, very rich. Several people, Daniel was very, very rich. Joseph of Arimathea was so rich that he gave his tomb that he had built for the body of Jesus to be in for 3 days. And so there are rich people in the Bible that are very godly. And the way they determine whether they're godly or not is what they do with their money. How they get it, how they spend it, how they invest it, how they share it. I want you to know God will bless some people with finances as long as he can trust them. And when you prove to be trustworthy and he knows you're going to give your money and you're going to spend your money the correct way and invest it the right way, there are people that I know he makes wealthy so they can in turn share. So we have godly poor people and godly rich people. And then we've got ungodly poor people, because being poor is not godly. Sometimes ungodly people are poor. And we see in the Bible, especially in Proverbs, the lazy person, the sluggard, the gambler, the person who spends all of his money on the wrong things and then looks for a handout to take care of his family. That person is an ungodly poor person. So we can't wrap our mind around, well, if you're poor, you're closer to God. No, that's not true. Once again, it comes back. How do you make your money? How do you invest your money? How do you spend your money? How do you share your money? And then, of course, we have the ungodly rich people. And we see those people all through the Bible, the Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar. The most famous ungodly rich person is a person during Jesus' time that has seen the miracles of Jesus. He's seen what Jesus is doing, and he comes to Jesus and he says, I'd like to have eternal life. And Jesus, knowing his heart, looks at him, knowing he's a rich person, and says, give away everything you own and come follow me. He understood his heart. He was an ungodly rich person because he looked at everything he owned and he looked at following Jesus and he turned his back on Jesus and he decided to keep his wealth. And so we have all of those examples in the Bible. And so James is saying, hey, you have to be godly whether you're rich or whether you're poor. If you're poor, this is what I want you to do. This is how you live as a poor person. Now, many of you listening today think you're poor. And so we're going to go with that because I understand that. You are not poor based on the civilization of the world. You're not poor based on people around the world. In fact, even in America, United States of America, from 1950 to now, our wealth has increased unbelievably as individual families. There are more cars, more electronics, more technology. We eat out more than we ever had, and we're still the most unhappy, most medicated generation of all time. Because money and happiness do not go together. Money and security do not go together, but we tend to think it is. And so we consider ourselves poor until you go to a third world country. When you go into a third world country and you see what poverty truly is, you see a man that struggles every day getting off a dirt floor where he sleeps and looking for work enough that day to bring home enough food so his kids go to bed at night with something in their stomach. That's poor. That's where poor is. Poor is going into Kenya and understanding there's 75% unemployment and the people are literally starving to death. That's poor. But anytime we take American Christians into these countries, the one thing they say that shocks them is these people have nothing, but they have something we don't. Joy. They're happy. The kids are running around in bare feet, barely clothed, playing with a deflated soccer ball, and they are happy. It's hard for us to imagine that based on our commercials and based on TV, but you can actually be happy without being rich, without having money, without flying all over the world. You can be happy. And he says, this is how you live poor. You want to live poor, take pride. Now listen to what he says. Believers in humble situations ought to take pride in their high position. And so you feel like you're at the bottom, but if you're a child of God, guess what? If you're a child of God, guess what? You may be poor, you may consider yourself poor, but God is going to put riches on you. One day you're going to have an inheritance and you're going to be exalted and you're going to live beside God in a beautiful paradise and you're going to have everything. Take pride in that. Look to that. Now, in our culture, I don't think James is just talking about those of you that consider yourself poor in economics. I think he's talking to you that feel low about a lot of areas in your life. And this morning, there are a lot of people in this room listening to me in Innocent and online, and they feel like they're in a lowly position. They feel like they're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not attractive enough. They're not interesting enough. And you feel like you're in a lowly position. Maybe some of you in high school are listening and you're not part of the popular crowd, or you're not on the football team, or you're not a cheerleader or a volleyball player. And so you feel like you are low in your position. Nobody comes to you and invites you out. Nobody comes to you and wants your opinion. Nobody comes to you and is attracted to you. So you feel like you're in a lowly position. And so James is saying, wherever you feel lowly, and you can feel this sentence, I wish I was blank. And that'll tell you how you feel about yourself. I wish I was wealthy. I wish I was smarter. I wish I was better looking. I wish I was, whatever you fill in that blank, is where you find yourself in a lowly position. James is saying, when you find yourself in that position, take pride in who God is. Take pride in what God's going to do for you. Take pride in what God thinks of you. So stop trying to create your identity. Stop trying to find your identity in who you say you are. I know there's a person in my life who has criticized me every day of my life. Every day of my life, he has something bad to say to me. Every time I do anything, he puts me down. Every time I prepare to preach, he tells me I'm unworthy. The worst critic in my life, and if I could get my hands on him, I would choke him, is me. You would be shocked at the things that go on and the things I say to myself. I am the most hateful person I know. Now, I give grace to other people, and I explain to other people God's love, but when I look in the mirror, all I see are the faults. All I see is the pain. All I see is you're not good enough. You shouldn't be there. If they really knew you, they wouldn't listen to you preach on Sunday morning. That's all I hear from myself. I'm my own worst critic. And if I get my identity from what I say to myself, I'd be in trouble. If I listen to the words that go on in my head before I come out to preach to you, I would never come out to preach. If I got my identity from what I said I am, I'd be hopeless. So James is saying, listen, don't get your identity from the words that you're saying to yourself. Get your identity from God himself. God has different words to say about me. God sees a person that he loves. He sees a child that he's invested in, a child that he cares about. He sees a person that he knows my entire history, and he says, I love you. But I remind him of my sin, and he says, it's okay, I've forgiven you. But God, no, I love you. I care about you. Some of you this morning, you're playing voices in your head. It's your voice, and it's the most critical voice anywhere. If somebody else talked to you like that, you'd smack them because they're so hateful to you and they're so mean and they say so many degrading things, and you look at yourself in the mirror and before you can even start your day, you're beat down, depressed, and lowly. So this verse is a reminder. When you find yourself in a lowly position, when your inner thoughts are ripping you apart, take pride in who you are because God chose you. And God loves you. And one day, God is going to exalt you, and you're a joint heir with Jesus, and you have all of this inheritance, and you're going to live in glory, and everything is going to be incredible. And those voices are going to be stilled because one day, you're going to see yourself the way God sees you. Take pride in that. Stop getting your identity from who you think you are. Stop getting your identity from others. Stop listening to what they say. People are always going to criticize. People are always going to tear you down. And in the world of social media, my goodness, they have a platform. They can say whatever they want at any time they want without fear. When I grew up, it wasn't like that. You said something about somebody and you met outside by the buses. And you worked it out. But now it's a whole different world. And so if you look at the culture around you and you listen to them and you're hearing and you're taking your identity from what other people say about you. You have a Father in heaven and you take pride in that. And you have a Father that loves you and a Father that thinks great things of you and has great plans for you and is going to raise you up one day and exalt you, and all the things in your life that are wrong, He's going to correct, and you're going to be perfect one day. Take pride in that. It's like if one of my children came home, and I had an incident where one of my girls came home one day and she was very upset. And people had been picking on her. I think it's about 6th grade. People had been picking on her and nobody would sit by her, and all of these things were going through this little girl's mind. And she was telling me, all the mean things that people say. And kids are mean. Have you noticed that? Those little monsters, they are mean. And so they're telling my little girl, you're not pretty. You're not smart. I can't believe how short you are. Are you a midget? All of these mean things. And so my daughter comes home broken, hurting, and she's telling me these things. And as her loving father, what do? I look her in the eye and I start explaining to her what I see. You're beautiful. You're incredible. You are so smart. You are tall enough. Your feet touch the ground. You're okay. And I want you to remember this in about 6 to 10 years, when you're the most beautiful girl in that school, and we're going to remind those little skanks. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I just said, one of these days, your beauty will show. Your beauty will show, and they'll see it from the inside out, because I'm your Father. Trust me. Well, folks, guess what? We have a Father that is 1,000 times better than I ever could be to my children. And He wants you to hear Him say, I love you exactly how you are. You are beautiful to me. You are smart enough for me. Your feet touch the ground. You're tall enough. You're going to be okay. And one day, all of these people are going to see you perfected in me. They're going to see you in my kingdom. They're going to see you the way I've designed you to be. And I'm going to complete that work in you. So don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about the culture around you telling you that you're not big enough or pretty enough or skinny enough or whatever it is in your world. Do not do it. Another place we need to stop trying to find our identity is through buying things. And this gets back to money, how we spend our money. Do you realize how much money we spend trying to impress people that we don't like? Think about it for a minute. We worry so much about things, and we try to purchase our identity. And we got to have the newest clothes, whatever's in fashion. We got to have the latest thing. And heaven forbid somebody seeing me in something that I wore. I saw something on TV the other day. They showed where one of the princesses in England wore the same outfit 4 times. I wear the same outfit 4 times in a week. I don't know what they're complaining about. And so you look at this and you try to find your identity through the clothes that you put on your back, and you stand in front of a closet, a Texas-sized closet full of clothes, and say the stupidest thing in the world. I have nothing to wear. A rack of shoes. I don't have any shoes. What are you talking about? But you see what happens in our culture, we're getting our identity by the way we dress, and we're worried about what somebody else is going to say. And instead of understanding who we are in God's sight, we're trying to buy our identity. Guys, you know better. You try to do it through technology. You have to have the latest phone. Got to have the iPhone 11, right? It's got 3 cameras. Why in the world would you need 3 cameras on a phone? I remember when phones were phones and cameras were cameras. We were okay. We lived. I want you to understand, we try to do it through technology, driving the newest vehicle, having the latest stuff, our hunting equipment, our fishing gear, our golf clubs, and heaven forbid, pulling out old dead clubs, bad clubs out of and our friends see it. We have to impress people. James is saying, stop trying to impress people. Stop looking to others. Just realize who you are in God's sight. Your appearance. We put way too much emphasis on the way we look. And listen, there's nothing wrong with being healthy. That's not a problem. But if you're spending all of your time and all of your money on your appearance, I hate to tell you, but the verse goes on and says, all of that's going to fade away. And it is. I mean, the diet industry is $1 billion business. Hey, dieting is not that difficult. Eat less, move more. That's it. And you're like, well, if it's so easy, why are you fat? I'll tell you, I love food and hate to move. That's it. That's it. It's not difficult to figure out. We don't need trained people to try to figure out. We know what's wrong. We eat too much and we don't move enough. But we spend billions of dollars because we're so concerned about our appearance. We're so concerned about what others think. And I tell you right now, you may be the most beautiful person in this room. Give it 30 years. I'm sorry. Give it 30 years. It's going to fade. It doesn't matter. If you find your identity in what you see in the mirror, it's going to be gone. Much better to find your identity, find yourself in this lowly position and look to God and take pride in the fact that He chose you. Take pride in the fact that He loves you. Take pride in the fact that one day He's going to exalt you and rest in that. So how do we live rich? It says there's a warning to rich people also. He says, like a wildflower, it will pass away. Everything you have. And then he reminds us in verse 16, my dear brothers and sisters, don't let anyone fool you. Every good and perfect gift is from God. That gift comes down from God. Everything you have comes from God. And so James is trying to remind those of us that are rich that everything we have is a gift from Him, and God never changes. So the thing he wants us to remember is God does not change. He always loves, always pursues, always invests in his kids. We have a God who loves to give gifts to his children, and everything you have has been granted. Now, I know that flies in the face of some of us because we earned it. Well, I went to school for 9 years after high school. I earned it. I've worked hard my entire life. I earned it. My health is because I eat right and I exercise. I've earned it. Well, no. According to God, every good gift came from Him. We need to focus on what He has done and what He has given us. He has gifted us with every good thing in your life. And so maybe we need to focus on what we have instead of what we don't have. Maybe we need to look in the mirror and see what He's given us, not what we haven't received. Because He's given us some incredible things. He's given us some good gifts. And here's the great thing about God. He gives them to us because we're His children, not because we earn them. He just gives them. So in the morning when you wake up, think about the gifts He's given you. He's given you what? Salvation. He's given you eternal life. He's given you the Holy Spirit. He's given you the saving power of God, of Jesus. He's given you the scriptures. He's given most of us our eyesight. He's given us our hearing. He's given us a place to live. He's given us food on the table. He's given us a family around us. He's given us a spouse. He's given us children. Amazing. So if you're rich today, understand that everything you've been granted can be gone tomorrow. One thing remains, God. So find your identity in that. Not in the car you drive or the house you live in or the vacations you take or how pretty you look in a selfie. God is where identity comes from. Everything we have has been granted and can be taken away or will fade away. And so what's God's greatest gift? Of course, it's Jesus. What did God do for all of us? He sent His Son. For while we were all those things our inner voice tells us we are, we're more than that because of salvation, because of Jesus. He's the first fruits, and God's gift is people, Jesus coming into our life and saving us. And so he wants us to see people as a gift from him. You have a gift all around you. The people you're going home with today are a gift from God. The people you love are a gift from God. Everywhere we look, we have this beautiful, beautiful gift. God gave us all of this. And he sees you as loved children. I want you to see that for a minute. I know some of you come to church or you think about God and you feel like I'm so lowly, I have nothing to give. I have nothing to give. I'm poor in finances, I have nothing to give. I'm not the smartest person, I have nothing to give. I'm not whatever you fill in the blank. And God says, hey, all I want is you. All I want from you is you. But I'm not in a good place. God says, I don't care what place you're in. I'm a father. I take kids like you and I give them gifts and I help them and I change them. So all I want today is you. And I'm going to love you and I'm going to help you and I'm going to serve you and I'm going to change you. And one day I'm going to exalt you and forever you will be with me. Listen to that. Listen to that. God says, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, everything comes from me. And if you'll look to me, I'm going to love you. I'm going to give you good gifts. I'm going to help you. I'm going to change you. I'm going to exalt you. And you're going to live with me forever. Folks, that's joy. That joy can produce happiness. That joy can produce peace. That joy produces love. And we see ourselves the way God sees us, a dearly loved child. In our struggles, let's hold on to that. In our trials, let's hold on to that. In our situations that bring fear and grief, let's hold on to that. In your lowly position, take pride in the fact that God will exalt you. With your riches, understand they're gifts from God. Gifts from God. And use them appropriately. Can I pray with you? Father, we come to you and we thank you for this wonderful gift of life. It's the greatest gift you've given. God, thank you for giving Jesus to us and all the other gifts that you give us. God, we want to give you glory. We want to give you gratitude. We want to thank you for all the good gifts. But more than anything this morning, God, we want to find our identity in you. God, we want to live as dearly loved children, taking pride in the fact that one day you'll exalt us. One day you'll make things right. God, understanding that even without all the things you've blessed us with, the one thing we can never lose is your love. Speak to us today and help us live in that way. In Jesus' name.
What an incredible morning. We are so excited that you joined us. Man, we know you could have been anywhere this morning, but you chose to worship with us here. Hey, listen, if you want to join David on our Footsteps of Paul trip next April, we're having an information meeting right out in the cafe, right after the second experience from 12:30 to 1:30. But also, I want to remind you, next weekend is our baptism weekend. It's going to be awesome. If you know that is your next step, go ahead and go online right now and sign up. It's going to be open for a couple more days, and we want you to be a part of that. Guys, thank you so much for worshiping with us. We'll see you next week. See you later.
If you have any questions or need prayer, send us a message at info@theavenuechurch.com. We are always here for you. Looking for ways to give from where you are? Text the amount to 84321. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media to stay in the loop. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.